Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is students of the snake in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. CH51 ID. Naruto knew he wouldn't be able to hold back this demon for much longer with just kunais. Sure, he could imagine himself with other weapons in this mental scope, but if he did that recklessly, the ONI could learn to do the same. Also, he had to actually have the skills to use the weapon properly for it to be of any use even here. Having a sword wouldn't be any better if he didn't actually have the training to go with it. He did, though, thanks to Zabuza and Sasami, but the point still stood. The great thing about a mindscape was that the limitations to what could happen were limited only by the imagination. This is what made jutsu such as Tsukiyomi and several torture techniques the Yamanaka knew so dangerous, especially since the host was more prone to pain than the invader was. The downside was that no matter how powerful and creative the jutsu user was when they invaded the mindscape, the target always had a home field advantage since it was their mind. Only the weak-willed, uncreative, or those caught off guard were forced into submission rather quickly. Someone of strong will or prepared for the jutsu would be able to fight back and resist to a point, a battle of creative wits being the deciding factor in who gets what they want. This is what Naruto was experiencing just now with Yakumo's inner demon. The ONI would be difficult to defeat, because of the home field factor and the fact that this mental aspect surely looked like a monster for a reason. What that reason was, Naruto had no idea, but he'd have to be extra creative here. Fortunately for him, that wasn't a problem. Naruto put a lot of force into his arms and turned his kunais to give the ONI a few cuts on its fingers. The mental monster withdrew its hands for an instant and Naruto gained some distance to be on the safe side. He happened to stop by the chained-down Yakumo. "Just what is this thing?" "It's a monster," she answered, sounding ashamed for reasons Naruto didn't understand. "I can see that. Why is it here?" he asked at the same time the ONI pounced at him. Naruto blocked it with his kunais again, but this time it wouldn't work for long. "I told you. I am her. Or at least a part of her," the ONI told the disguised Jinchuriki before withdrawing its claws and striking again from a new angle. But this time it looked like it was trying to punch Naruto, not tear into him. The better part, that is. Rather than block the punch, Naruto backflipped away from it. "You're still just a part, though," he said, mostly to antagonize the beast and throw its game off. It appeared to work a little too well. The ONI glowed darkly as if it had a curse mark of its own, or Amaterasu flames self-formed on its skin. The dark flame-like aura burst off the ONI and moved towards Naruto like lightning would. Naruto may have found it fascinating if he wasn't on the intended receiving end of the attack. "Crap, I don't think I can dodge it for long here. But maybe I can block it or overpower it," Naruto told himself before his Neo Sharingan eyes started spinning around. Time to fight fire with fire. Hell Amaterasu. A silver flame emerged out of nowhere and formed a wall in front of Naruto, preventing the ONI's flame from hitting him directly. Like with Extreme Tsukiyomi, Naruto wouldn't be able to use Mangekyou level jutsu, but since he was in a mindscape he wasn't as limited in power usage as long as he didn't cause damage to himself. So he could use his other Mangekyou Neo Sharingan technique, the Hell Amaterasu, here safely without Kyuubi's help. He was likely to suffer a bit when he left the mindscape, but he'd have to cross that bridge when he came to it. Like the Extreme Tsukiyomi, Hell Amaterasu wasn't that different from the jutsu of its inspiration. It created a flame that lasted for days and couldn't be put out by water or anything short of the caster cancelling it out. The differences were that this flame was silver rather than black, lasted only 2 days rather than 7, and could be controlled in a way that was commonly known as firebending. Unwilling to take the chance that the ONI's flame attack had ceased, Naruto kept his fiery wall up, but willing 2 arms to form on its sides to branch out and strike back. Judging from the grunting sound the ONI made, this caught it by surprise. Unwilling to get burnt, it got away from the flame and had to stop its own attack. The silver flames didn't stop in return and engulfed it in a pyre-like manner. When Naruto felt the attack stop, he moved the silver flame to stick close to him in a spiral fashion, like a twister, so it would stay available for later on. "I still can't figure out what this thing is or how it's connected to the chained-down girl," he told himself. "If I could, then maybe I'd know how to handle this and win the match." He then ran up to the captured Yakumo, certain she could inform him a bit more. How do I get rid of this thing? He asked when he got close to her. You can't. It's been inside me for as long as I can remember. She sounded so hopeless. But you're the dominant personality, right? Not that creature. Naruto asked. You can fight back. Yakumo gazed at the boy in shock. You make it sound so easy. Every time that thing gets loose, I get trapped and shoved into a mental corner while it takes over my body and gets bloodthirsty. I can't fight back. Have you ever tried? Naruto asked, sounding angry to ensure she paid attention. I saw how you acted in our match. You were afraid to fight me and you were afraid to get hurt. Do you actually want that thing to stay so you can hide in your own mind when things get too scary for you? No, but I can't get rid of it. She tearfully countered. It's part of my psyche, a side effect of my Kekkei Genkai. It's the yin to my yang, the ID to my ego, so you can't destroy it without destroying me. In the distance the monster got free of the flames and looked madder than ever. You are so fucking dead. It then ran up to Naruto with its head down like a charging bull. Some of the silver flames were still stuck to its skin and burning it. Naruto was able to get out of its way thanks to the shout warning him and the fact it momentarily couldn't see where it was going. The ONI soon realized it didn't connect with its target and stopped charging. It turned around, trying to swat away the Hell Amaterasu fire still, and flexed its claws in anticipation of shredding the boy to pieces. Naruto just got an idea, a risky one, but it would determine the possible weakness of his opponent. He reached down, held Yakumo's head up, and placed a kunai by her neck. You attack me one more time and she dies. His protective flames weren't touching her, but positioned so that at any second they could. Both Yakumo and her inner demon froze. No, please. You can't. Yakumo said in sheer fright, trying to squirm free. What's your game? The ONI asked, trying to sound more confused than wary. Naruto smirked. If the two of you are connected, then logically you can't live without her. You could not be more wrong. The ONI smugly stated. Naruto just shrugged. Fine. Let's see about that. He pulled back his hand with the kunai and got ready to jab it into her neck. Before he could, the ONI started to run towards him, and then he stopped and smirked again. Damn it, he tricked me. The ONI told itself, realizing he had done that just to make it confess it was dependent on Yakumo living. Sorry about that. I just needed you to actually be afraid for a moment. Naruto kindly whispered to the panicked Yakumo. But you shouldn't be afraid of that thing. It said it's a part of you, not you're a part of it. You ought to stand up to it and remind it who's really in charge here. With that, he placed his hands on her chains, made them glow orange, and tugged at them with intention to break, much like what he intended to do in the first place when he entered the artist's mind. You're not going to get away with this. The ONI proclaimed as it charged in to punch Naruto, then rip his head off. Naruto sent out his protective flames forward to stop it in its tracks and make it have to find another way through. Damn it! I will not lose to you. Naruto pulled and pulled, the chains being stronger than he anticipated. This must not be a genjutsu on her, but a self-imposed mental restraint. He had to move the Hell Amaterasu flames to create a protective dome around himself and the chained-down girl. Tell me what that thing is so I can get rid of it and we can return to our match in the real world. I don't know how to explain it exactly. Yakumo told him, her fear of him slowly disappearing now that she saw he was trying to help her. In my clan, we have a Kekkei Genkai where we can make our genjutsus real to those we inflict on them, as long as they're physically possible. But it's a recessive bloodline, so not everyone has it. It was my bad luck to be born with it functional. Like the Rinnegan or the Mokuton. Naruto asked, having heard both Kekkei Genkai were, at least originally, skills that mostly skilled generation and even when active only activated in specific people or circumstances. Yes, exactly. Yakumo continued. I can make my genjutsus reality for people, but I don't like the idea of hurting people like the Kekkei Genkai was intended for. I always wanted to be an artist instead, but I became a kunoichi for my clan's honor, thinking I could become a good one specializing in genjutsu so I wouldn't have to get blood on my hands. Noble ambition. Naruto complimented. He could hear the Oni beating on the flames around him trying to get in. At one point the left hand got through but pulled back just as quickly. Yakumo smiled at the compliment, but it didn't last when she said more. But something went wrong. In my training, the repressed part of me, the part that did want to hurt others, my ID if you will, gained strength from my reality-altering ability and gained a life of its own. It's the curse of my clan, the one with the bloodline in time gains a vicious personality with it. Normally the Kurama would know how to suppress it but mine caught them off guard and she held back a sob. It killed them all by starting a fire. I'm the only one left, and I'm forever vulnerable to my dark side because of this village. Why? Naruto asked. My uncle survived and insisted on sealing away my, for lack of a better term, my ID demon for safety reasons. But without another genjutsu expert in the village to verify his work, the council refused to trust his effectiveness. I know that feeling. The disguised Jinhuriki stately offhandedly, only to catch himself too late. This time both of the Oni's hands briefly got through the flame barrier. I gotta hurry. The Kurama heiress paid it no mind for now. Anyways, it was ultimately decided that since they couldn't guarantee my demon wouldn't attack again, the Hokage used some people from outside my clan to make use of it as they saw fit. They placed a suppression seal on me that would keep it dormant but able to awaken in the presence of danger and my fear. And it won't be suppressed again until the danger passes or it tries to kill someone from the village. Sort of like a self-defense split personality. So if you really want to help me, leave here and go finish the fight until one of those things happen. Naruto didn't move away, only continued to try and break the chains. And leave you here so you can keep suffering the next time you get scared. I saw you in our fight. You were worried too easily because you chose to be dependent on one skill. That was your big mistake. Maybe if you had balanced yourself out or learned to cope with hurting others when the situation needed it, you could have suppressed it yourself. Yakumo suppressed the need to cry her eyes out, but a few tears did escape. You're right. Hindsight's 20/20th, isn't it? But what do I do now? Fight back. Stand up to the demon by being willing to handle your own problems. Prove that you're the one in charge here, not it. And if you don't mind, help me send it back to wherever it goes when it isn't controlling your body. Yakumo stared up at him in awe of his courageous words and willingness to help her, despite the fact he didn't even know her. She couldn't imagine anyone doing that, not for her. The Kurama were barely acknowledged or respected, not even having a seat on the Shinobi Council due to the recessive nature of their Kekkei Genkai. Most Kurama had the same skills as other shinobi but with a better affinity to genjutsu, even if they lacked the Kekkei Genkai Yakumo had. Heck, she was the last of her clan and the only one among them with the power they were built around, and she still got no acknowledgement for herself. The Oni charged in through the flames successfully this time, looking like some beast that just got out of hell and had yet to cool off. Naruto pulled his flames back in hopes of a single crushing blow, but the Oni grabbed his neck with its left hand and lifted him into the air. Naruto found it hard to breathe and the silver flames fell to the floor, still burning but unresponsive to his commands. I'm going to disembowel you slowly right here, you dick. The Oni stated in pure fury. Then I'm going to do the same to your actual body and dance in your blood. It used its right hand to punch him hard in the stomach, making him even more breathless. I'm going to turn your organs into dog food, your bones to splinters, and your worthless brains into putty. Maybe I'll even tear your skin off into little strips and use them to wipe my ass. What do you have to say about that? Naruto used his left hand to drive a kunai into the Oni's right eye, making it howl in agony and release him. He regained his breath before answering. I'd say you should just kill the guy instead of bragging about it first. And you have a pretty grotesque imagination even for a monster. The Oni pulled out the kunai. You're right, no more talking, just killing. It took a few steps forward, but the sound of snapping metal caught both of their attentions. Behind the Oni, Yakumo stood up and threw off the chains she managed to break free from, holding one of them like a whip. This time she didn't look cowardly, but rather determined to stand her ground. If he can stand up to you, then there's no reason I shouldn't. She twirled her chain around and it started to glow as if superheated, except where she held onto it. This is my mind. You will listen to me from now on. What the hell? the ONI asked in complete surprise. Yakumo swung her chain and it wrapped around the mental monster, pinning its arms at its side. The chain started to burn it much like the Hell Amaterasu had, but this time it seemed to char the flesh under the skin too. It felt much worse. And to make it even worse, Naruto firebended the silver flames to add damage to Yakumo's attack. "Stop this!" the ONI screamed in horrible torment. Yakumo's eyes glowed and a seal appeared on the ground where the demon stood and struggled. From that seal, even more chains emerged and tied down the monster. Then some metal poles burst out of the creature's feet like it had stepped on some large nails. The chains pulled the ONI down on its hands and knees, and 2 more metal spikes pinned its claws down. Yakumo released her burning chain, her eyes still glowing, and the ONI started to sink into the ground. "Go where you can do no more harm, you beast. And stay there. My mind, my body, my life, is now off limits. You're nothing without me and you know it. I will get free someday." "You don't have the power," the ONI tried to claim, but it was swallowed up before it could finish. The glow on the ground in Yakumo's eyes faded, but the seal where the ONI had stood remained. Yakumo exhaled deeply in relief and collapsed to her knees. "Is it really? Did I just do that?" "Yeah, you did. And I'm pretty impressed," Naruto told her as he cancelled out his Hell Amaterasu, making the flames disappear completely. Yakumo smiled at him and shed a tear, this time out of happiness. "Thank you so much. I could never have done that without you. No sweat. Now, what do you say we go back and finish our fight in the real world?" he friendly offered. She nodded. "Yes, let's." As expected, in the real world only 4 seconds passed with neither Yakumo or Naruto moving or saying anything. Before anyone could ask what was going on, they both jerked back as they rejoined reality. Naruto backed away and Yakumo got back on her feet. Naruto got back into a fighting style and awaited his opponent to ready herself. After what he had just seen, he felt she deserved a chance to show off how good she really could be here. "Proctor, I forfeit," the artist told Hayate. Hayate looked surprised, as did Naruto and several others. "Another one forfeiting. May I ask why?" Cough. "This is one opponent I would rather not fight. I'm positive my skills aren't enough to have me win here and I'm willing to admit I'm outclassed. Better I escape and live to fight another time than risk too much harm to myself because I'd be afraid to look like a coward if I didn't. Isn't that how it should work in ninja fights?" she explained. Hayate smiled. "That's acceptable. Many ninja became martyrs because they thought running away from a hopeless fight was a sign of weakness rather than intelligence. It's better to flee so you can train to be stronger next time than to risk death over something like a reputation. So winner by forfeit, Naruto Urashi." I get the feeling he was telling that to everyone, not just her. Kakashi told himself. I hope my students understood that. Naruto held out his hand for a sign of good sportsmanship. "If it's any consolation, you were pretty impressive back there." He was surprised when she chose to hug him rather than shake his hand. "Thanks. I owe you big. Let me know what I can do before you leave," she whispered, making him blush a little. Meanwhile, Hinata was seeing red. "Oh hell no. No, Konoha skink is getting my man. Ch52 lucky." Yakumo went back up to her team since she wasn't hurt enough to go to the infirmary, but not before giving Naruto a parting wink and smile. Naruto had been around enough girls to know what that meant, and wisely didn't respond in an encouraging way. All he did was smile and wave. Then again, that might have been encouraging enough for her. Naruto went up to his teammates. As he expected, Hinata gave him a frown, but not an accusing one. "Nothing happened, Hina-chan. Don't you trust me?" He turned off his Neo Sharingan, and felt his eyes sting a small bit and his vision go blurry. He expected this from using the Hell Amaterasu, although it would have been worse had he used it outside Yakumo's mindscape. "Yeah, I trust you, Naru-kun. But not her," she told him. Isaribi shrugged it off. "Don't be so quick about that. We do need a 9th girl after all." Hinata turned her frown towards her purple-haired teammate. "I'd rather it be Hanabi in that case. Rule number 1 of our little group, No Konoha girls allowed. You know, you were born in Dash. Isaribi started to comment until Hinata sharply cut her off. If you want to stay in the group you won't ever finish that statement. Settle down you two. Don't draw attention. Anko told them with much authority, silencing them both. Meanwhile, Yakumo was greeted by her own team. Yakumo, I didn't expect you to just give up like that. May I ask why? Genma, her team's sensei, asked professionally without judgment. It felt like the right thing to do under the circumstances. She told him. I see he appeared to have calmed you down right away. Shino stated with some suspicion in his stoic tone. He usually had to subdue Yakumo when her inner demon got out in uncalled for times. Yeah. In fact, I doubt I'll ever need calmed down again. The artist said with a smile. This only made Genma more concerned. He didn't hurt you, did he? Yakumo shook her head. Nope. He freed me instead. So you can still use your skills. Yakumo's remaining teammate, a pale boy named Sai, asked. She never really liked him, especially with his curiosity about her talents. Both Kekii Genkai and artistic, and he didn't seem interested in the first in a comfortable way. Sure, she admitted he was a good drawer, but that was it. Yeah, but for now, no more mood swings hopefully. Like my uncle intended before those idiots butted their noses in where it didn't belong. Genma blinked in surprise and even Shino and Sai looked like they had been lightly blindsided. Are you sure you're alright? Yakumo thought it over. Yeah, I'm fine. I guess my mind is a bit more stable now that I'm no longer only half of myself at a time. It feels good. The monitor buzzed and the next two names were displayed. Kiba Inuzuka vs Sesame Fuma. Hell yeah. Now it's time for the best to shine. Kiba shouted confidently before he jumped over the railing and into the arena. Anything I should know about this guy? Sesame asked, recognizing the dog Nin from Wave but never having any interaction with him. Kick his groin and it's all over. Hinata offered, sounding a bit amused. Sesame nodded and headed down, thinking over what she had heard about the Inuzuka clan. Okay, according to Kurane-sensei, this clan produces ninja that partner themselves with dogs and have their moves work in conjunction with them. Also they themselves have heightened senses of smell and hearing and tend to move like animals, specifically dogs. In that case, I think I know what to do. Slow him down or attack from a distance. She then winced a bit. Damn cramps. Meanwhile, Kakashi was sizing up his student's opponent. So, a member of the Fuma clan, huh? From what I hear, they're native to Land of Rice. Is that where this new sound village resides? I better tell Hokage-sama this so we'll know where to look for whoever destroyed the Sharingan in me and Sasuke. Kiba's thoughts were a bit more simplistic, but not downright simple-minded. Okay, I got a kunoichi like that jerk Sasuke hoped I'd get. At least I'm more likely to win with my skills still intact. But if she's anything like the other girl with that symbol, then I'm glad I wore a cup this time. His nose then caught a peculiar scent. Blood? She's bleeding? Oh, it must be that time for her. Remembering what he knew from sparring with his own sister and mother, and at least once his teammate Sakura, Kiba knew that kunoichi on this particular part of their cycle were like a double-edged sword. The hormones added to their aggressiveness and strength in their hits, especially when the target was a male. The downside, they themselves often lost a little of their focus when aggravated and they would feel some discomfort in their abdominal area which would affect their movements. Kunoichi had a standard relief jutsu to minimize the discomfort a bit so they could still be effective, but it usually only lasted a few hours at most. The brief look of pain Kiba saw on Sesame told him she had cast it on herself already but it was losing effectiveness by now. Ready? Hate asked, and got no objection. Begin. Sesame pulled out 4 smaller than normal kunaus and threw all of them at Kiba. He ran towards her at the same time but with his body hunched forward so 2 kunaus easily missed him while 2 each hit a shoulder. He ignored the pain and made a hand sign. Beast mimicry. With that, his body looked a bit more feral and moving on all 4s was easier for him without losing any speed. Earth style, headhunter jutsu. Sesame said after 2 hand signs and placing her palms on the floor. A pit opened up right where Kiba was about to be to trap him in the ground, but he jumped over it and avoided capture. The pit closed and Sasami pulled out a Wakizashi when Kiba got close enough to attack. Rather than face her head-on with such a weapon, he and Akamaru leaped over her and used the wall behind her to rebound off of and try to attack from behind. He's too fast to catch with most earth jutsus, Kurane told herself. She'll have to start out defensively for that to work. Sasami made the ox sign and literally sank into the ground, causing the Inuzuka to miss her unexpectedly. Akamaru sniffed where Sasami had last stood and listened to the subtle sounds of the ground shifting underfoot, indicating Sasami was moving to another spot. He barked to let his partner know this, lest Kiba search only with his eyes. Kiba got the message, and used some chakra to cling to the walls to avoid any direct surprise attacks when the orange-haired Kunoichi emerged. While he waited, he pulled out the two kunao stuck in his shoulders and dropped them. Sasami called out a jutsu from underground, and while Kiba's better-than-average hearing couldn't make it out, he was aware she said something. From 8 meters away from him and 3 meters away from the wall, some sharp points stuck out of the floor then shot out in all directions around them like kunaos. Kiba had to jump to avoid the ones headed right for him, but with multiple sharp stone projectiles flying around he couldn't avoid them all. Akamaru's smaller size allowed him to get away with only some missing fur at worst. Sasami came out of the ground with her Wakizashi out. She rushed at him looking like she wanted to stab him with it. Unfortunately for her, Inuzukas knew how to handle weapon users. Piercing Fang, he stated before leaping towards her and spinning around quickly, creating a cyclone around himself. Sasami skidded to her right to avoid being hit in the gut and saw the puppy Kiba was partnered with. Kiba could feel he missed his target when he felt himself connect with a wall rather than a girl, so he turned around after impact without stopping the attack. But he did have to stop when he heard Akamaru bark in distress. When he stopped, he saw Sasami holding Akamaru hostile, holding him up by his forelegs as he struggled to get loose. Big mistake, bitch, Kiba growled, his hand hovering over his supply pouch. In truth, that wasn't complete banter. For all basic purposes, Kiba was the strongest member of his team if you didn't count Kakashi. He had a set training routine he kept to, one that actually tested his limits and gave him room to improve, and he did it regularly. He motivated himself rather than wait for someone else to tell him to do it, and he wasn't afraid to ask for help when learning something new or trying something on the job. Not only that, he enjoyed doing things in training the hard way, as it challenged him more and felt more effective, rather than assuming results would come quickly or on a silver platter. So in a manner of speaking, Kiba's self-image as deserving alpha of the pack wasn't entirely without reason. The problem was that self-image was his big weakness. He expected others to agree and go along with it, particularly women. Now Kiba didn't disrespect women. Having a mother and sister who could kick his ass without breaking a sweat showed him females weren't supposed to be by nature his subordinates. But the fact that they did it so easily made him crave respect from women more than anyone else. And since Inuzuka women had a tendency to like macho men, the kind that could prove to be better providers than the women could alone, Kiba habitually tried to enforce a macho status on himself, following his father's lead as an example for such. The way he figured it, if his father Gao Inuzuka was able to get his mother Tsum by such means, surely it would work if he did the same. If you don't want your little dog to be nurtured, I suggest you surrender right now, Sasami told him. Despite the fact she was holding Akamaru with both hands, one of them also held her Wakizashi so she could quickly make good on her threat if she had to. Nice way to intimidate him, Kurane said quietly. Using the dog as a hostage will give her a lot of leeway here. What if it just makes him mad? Fu asked. Oh, it will, but he can't afford to put his partner at risk, the genjutsu expert replied. Kiba's hand went into his supply pouch when she said that and pulled out a soldier pill. He flicked it with his thumb like he was flipping a coin, and the pill shot right into Akamaru's mouth before Sasami saw it move. After swallowing, the ninja dog growled and his fur got red and almost quill-like. Sasami didn't drop him, but holding onto him started proving harder. But when Kiba performed another piercing fang, Sasami had no choice to let the puppy go free so she could dodge unhindered. Also, she honestly didn't want to risk actually endangering the dog. Kiba stopped when he got right by Akamaru, glad his opponent reacted in the way he hoped she would. With Akamaru free, he jumped onto Kiba's back. Advanced Beast Mimicry, Man-Beast Clone. Kiba declared while Akamaru transformed into a duplicate of Kiba. So now I'm not supposed to tell which is which, and that'll prevent me from fighting either effectively. Sasami asked herself. Too bad for him that thanks to Naruto-kun I've got experience fighting clones. Sasami made the ox sign again and sank back into the ground. Nice try. Tunneling Fang. Kiba said as he and Akamaru did the Inyazuka drill attack that was designed to dig through solid objects like rocks and walls in case they were ever trapped. With it, the two went underground. When they came back up, Sasami was sent flying into the air and hit the ceiling hard. The two Kibas landed safely and kept some distance, waiting to see Sasami's reaction before potentially wasting chakra. The orange-haired Kunoichi struggled to get back on her feet, her bones aching. Damn, that guy hits harder than I thought. And he's too quick and agile for my methods to be fully effective. And now I'm even slower, giving him a big advantage to beat me before I recover. There's only one thing I can do. With that, Sasami let herself collapse and played dead. Winner, Kiba Inyazuka. Hayate announced. Yes. Take that Sasuke team. Kiba shouted triumphantly while Akamaru returned to normal in shape and color. I'm glad at least one of my students won. Kakashi thought while trying to divide his attention between the matches and his Ika. She did her best. That's all I ever asked for. Kurane said with a small amount of pride for her student. Medics came and took Sasami away. Hayate addressed everyone still present. We'll take a pause to allow the floor to be fixed. So no one go anywhere. Sarutobi was about to empty his pipe of ashes when Kakashi approached him from behind. Kakashi? What brings you here? Hokage-sama, I've got an idea I think may be of interest to you. The old man arched an eyebrow and put his pipe down. Go on. In case you are not aware, the Fuma clan is known to be native to Land of Rice. So if this new village... Oto was it? Kakashi asked, and the Hokage nodded. So if Oto has a Fuma as a member of its ranks, then it's likely that's the country it's located in. Sarutobi made a hum of intrigue. Before the exams had started he informed all his jounin of the new village he had been told of by the Kaze Cage, and Kakashi told everyone of the music note symbol the group he encountered in Wave Bore. Once these ninja got to Konoha, it was easy to confirm that the music note was the symbol of Otagakure. But sadly they had no leads as to where the village was located. You make a good point, Kakashi. Sarutobi stated. We must keep this in mind. However, under the circumstances, I fear we can't pursue this lead until after the exams finish. Why? Kakashi asked, not liking the idea. If we can find this village then we can find out how they negated the Sharingan and maybe get it working again. While Kakashi liked having his depth perception back now that he no longer had to cover one eye all the time, he still hated how Obito's memento was basically destroyed. I'm well aware of that. The Hokage told the perpetually late jounin. But we still don't know exactly where this new village is or what to look for. I mean, how do you find a village hidden in sound? Sending shinobi to find it would more than likely alert the native shinobi to our presence and only put them in harm's way. So the wise thing to do is wait for these genin to return home and have our guys follow them. Kakashi didn't like it, but saw the wisdom in such a move. Understood, Hokage-sama. On another note, how do you intend to approach them on their inclusion of a Byakugan wielder? Sarutobi smiled in a devious way as he went back to cleaning his pipe. Leave that to me. After some Konoha jounin used some earth jutsus to repair the arena floor, the preliminaries were back underway. The monitor flashed the names of the next contestants. Kankuro Sabuka vs Rock Lee. YOSH. It's my time to shine. Lee shouted out with his fist in the air. But this shout sounded more optimistic than arrogant. That's the guy. Kankuro asked himself. Best be cautious just in case. The two went down to the arena and sized each other up. Neither was really certain of what to expect of the other, although Lee was certain Kankuro's bundle on his back had to serve some purpose here. Ready? Begin. Hayate announced. Lee eagerly ran forward, moving faster than Kankuro expected or could counter against. Lee started with a dynamic entry kick to Kankuro's upper body, not bothering to say its name since he wasn't actually making an entry. The Sunanin went flying towards the wall, everyone hearing a deafening crunch sound when the green-clad Konoha Genin made contact. Wow! It sounds like Lee shattered that guy's skeleton. Tenten said. Lee stopped to see if his foe could even stand now. I hope it's not over too soon. I enjoy a long workout over a brief one. Not that I want to torment the guy needlessly though. Kankuro haphazardly got back on his feet, his movements making him look like a scarecrow brought to life. Cracking sounds could be heard as he moved. Are his bones broken? How is he moving, was the general thought of those unaware of his skills. But all normal analytical thought ceased when Kankuro showed his face. His wooden grinning face with some of it covered by some sort of synthetic skin mask. A puppet user. I expected to see one from Suna here. Guy told himself. The wrapped-up bundle started to unravel and the real Kankuro emerged from it. You've got a pretty mean punch there, man. I knew it was a good idea to trade places with my Karasu beforehand. Lee smiled. Thanks for the compliment. I gotta say you sure surprised me there. This should prove to be a nice challenge for us. He then tried some standard moves from his hard fist taijutsu to test Kankuro's reactions. The puppeteer waved his hands and the puppet moved to take the hit, then basically hugged Lee to hold him still. Before the green-clad genin could free himself, several needles burst from Karasu's arms and injected him with venom. It wasn't lethal, Kankuro preferred to save that for the invasion, but for now this would do. And if that wasn't bad enough, Karasu then body slammed Lee into the wall behind him, but not with enough force to damage the humanoid puppet. Guy-sensei, what is that? Tenten asked, always eager to hear about new weapons. It's one of Suna's trademarks. Guy told his Kunoichi student. Suna is well known for 3 skills they excel in, their use of wind jutsu, botanical toxins, and of course puppetry jutsu. Puppetry jutsu basically gives the wielder a stand-in for the actual fighting, allowing them to fight at any range without actually putting themselves in harm's way. The beauty of it is that the puppets can come in virtually any form and be equipped with virtually anything, and a powerful puppeteer could even manipulate more than one with experience and focus. The downside is that the puppets in general are slow and breakable, and give the puppeteer little ability to use anything along with them, as they basically make the wielder's hands full. So Lee should be fine since he can move fast enough. Tenten asked, faithful in her enthusiastic teammate but also curious about anything else her sensei could tell her. In theory, yes. Guy answered, making the weapon's mistress flop sweat in worry. He did get caught just now, so we need to see what the puppet actually does before assuming Lee has the upper hand. Lee didn't look physically affected, so he continued the fight like nothing had happened. Kankuro moved his puppet, waiting for the potion he injected into Lee to take effect. It wasn't lethal, but rather it temporarily thickened the blood a little, making the heart struggle to pump it as effectively for approximately 17 minutes. Movements would slow, breathing would become labored, and increased physical stress could cause severe circulatory problems and organ malfunction in some cases. So if Lee knew what was good for him, he'd stopped when it hurt to keep going. Too bad Kankuro didn't know that this Konoha genin just loved to test his limits. Lee ran right past Karasu and up to the one pulling the chakra strings. He unwrapped his bandages and used them to tie up the Suna genin, who couldn't react fast enough to get away. Primary Lotus. Lee announced. Kankuro was turned into a duplicate of the disguise he wore when this match started, and Lee threw him up into the air before jumping up and kicking him down. Secondary Lotus. At the same time Kankuro tried to get Karasu to fire some more senbon from its mouth, these ones tipped with nothing to prevent a dangerous mixture of toxins. Lee took a hit in his left calf, but his training weights ended up blocking them from actual penetration. Kankuro took a pretty hard crash landing and the bandages were removed. He knew he could easily keep going, but for the brief moment before Lee continued his assault, he thought it over. This guy is good and he hasn't even used any jutsu yet. If I keep going, Karasu may get broken too much for me to repair before the final round, and I would have to reveal all my best maneuvers to win here. If I do that, then I won't have any surprises later on when we need it. The wise thing to do is pull out now, cut my losses, and save my strength for later on. Lee was more than ready to continue, but Kankuro raised his hand up in surrender. Proctor, I give. Really? Hate asked, holding his hand up to tell Lee to halt. Not receiving an answer from the Suna Genin, the coughing Jounin shrugged. Alright, winner by cough forfeit, Rock Lee. YOSH. I did it, Guy Sensei. Lee shouted triumphantly, adding a thumbs up and shining grin to his instructor. Way to go, Lee. Guy proudly shouted back in an identical manner. Lee then quickly joined him up on the balcony and the two created their abominable sunset jutsu, with only Tenten knowing ahead of time to shield her eyes. The Suna and Oto ninjas of all ranks, and even most of the Konoha ninja too, all watched this in horror and revulsion. Dear Kami. Even I think that's one genjutsu the world's better off without. Kurane claimed. Can I go back to never sleeping again so I can't have that for a nightmare? Gaara asked. I think I'm actually getting sicker. Hate told himself. Kankuro was offered to be taken to the infirmary but he declined. I'm fine, just sore. I just need to relax for a moment. He picked up Karasu and went back up to his team. At the same time, Lee started feeling lightheaded and out of breath. All you alright, Lee? Guy asked, ending their unintentional horror show. I'm fine, Sensei. Just a little worn out more than I expected. But I will not let that bother me. The green-clad Genin said, looking a little pale. Maybe you should relax just a bit, Lee, in case that puppet got you with something. Tenten suggested. I agree. Take a small break and sit down, Lee. Guy told his star pupil, who instantly obeyed. The monitor buzzed and declared the next round. Shikamaru Nara vs Zakuabumi. CH-53 troublesome. Shikamaru sighed in frustration when he saw his name come up. What a drag. And I was hoping to rest some more. Shika, you could sleep for 24 hours and still say it's not enough. Ino drolly stated. Your point being? The Nara asked as if she wasn't wrong. Just get down there. The platinum blonde ordered. Shikamaru sighed and started walking down to the arena at a patient pace. What a drag. Nonetheless, Shikamaru, give it your all. Asuma told his student. Or I'll tell your mother otherwise. On the other side of the room, his opponent was already ready and waiting, feeling rather impatient rather than hesitant. This should be good. Looks like I've got an easy win. On the inside, he sounded less boastful. I make this and become Chiryunin, I can prove I'm a worthy addition to Oto. The young boy was brought to the hidden village during the trek. The refugees from Kiri made their way to it as well. Orochimaru went to a village near where the group made camp one night and saw the orphan shivering in an alley, felt sympathy, and offered to take the boy along. He readily accepted and since then aspired to show he had been worthy of the kind gesture. Dosa looked at his teammate sympathetically. I sure hope he wins, for his sake if nothing else. What do you mean? Haku asked, having overheard the comment. Oh, nothing. It's just that Zaku's a tad bit competitive in spars. He likes to win and gets downright mopey when he loses. Personally, I think he's got a bit of an inferiority complex because he takes it so hard. Inferiority complex, huh? Haku commented. He sure hides it well. Zaku cracked his knuckles and stretched his arms at the same time Shikamaru actually got where he was supposed to be. The Nara looked bored and inconvenienced but he made sure to carefully look over his opponent. Okay, nothing particularly notable about this guy. No visible weapons, no unusual physical traits, and no signs of intense physical training. For all basic purposes, he looks like a normal genin, but he has secrecy as his advantage since I don't know what he can do. And from seeing others from his village fight earlier, I can't make an accurate guess as to what exactly to expect. He looks like an easy win. Hell, he looks like he doesn't even want to win. Zaku told himself. Ready? Begin. Hate called out. Zaku quickly stuck his hands out in front of him, palms facing his opponent. Wind palm. All of a sudden 2 bursts of condensed air rushed forward and knocked Shikamaru off his feet. It felt like he had just been punched by 2 giant fists. Wind jutsus without hand signs. He asked himself. Decapitating airwaves. Zaku added, and Shikamaru wisely decided to get out of the way before 2 slash marks appeared in the wall behind where he had stood just before the attack was called. Zaku then simply rained his palms towards Shikamaru again. Decapitating airwaves. The young Nara dodged again and saw one slash mark carved into the floor where he had been standing and one in the wall behind him again. Okay, the difference in location confirms he can make two different attacks simultaneously and aim them separately or together. Considering the angle his hands had just been a moment ago, I'm guessing that determines the aim for both strikes. In that case, I think I know what to do. The problem will be finding a moment when he can't attack. Zuko stopped his attack and flexed his arms. Still working good. This was so worth it. 2 years ago, back before he even made Genin, Zuko had volunteered to be a guinea pig for a new ninja weapon. The weapon was designed to allow wind and sound manipulation all without hand signs by using a chakra-powered vacuum mechanism. The catch was that in order for it to work as intended, the device had to be stored in the forearms with narrow tubes connected to the palms to allow air to enter and exit, and small vents by the elbows to eliminate excess air pressure. Chakra flow in the arms would draw air and then force it out with a lot of force, creating forceful or cutting wind attacks and even sonic blasts. However, this of course came with a drawback, as pointed out by Tsunade. The surgery needed to install such a mechanism could damage the tissue in the arm, and if it wasn't placed in just the right place right by the chakra network, which only a Byakugan user could determine for maximum success, it couldn't likely work effectively anyway. Not only that, if it did work, the presence of this tool would limit and hinder the overall flexibility and speed of the arms, giving them a disadvantage at learning other techniques. Zuko had been warned, but his desire to prove himself overpowered his desire to stay safe, and he took the operation anyway. To this day he had yet to regret it. Once his internal tool, which had yet to be officially named for some reason, had finished reloading, he looked at his foe cockily. "You might as well give up or let me kill you, dude. There's no way you're any match for me. Please don't brag about yourself, Zuko." Dosu said to himself, thinking actually telling his teammate that would count as interference with the match. "You can't beat my methods," Zuko said, showing his hands proudly. "I can create almost any wind and sound attack I want without hand signs, and attack in 2 separate directions and from any range. Face it, as long as I have chakra in my arms, you won't be able to so much as scratch me, Leaf Nin." Shikamaru just smiled. "In that case, I guess the trap I set up behind you won't work." "What trap?" Zuko reflexively turned around to see whatever Shikamaru had indicated. He saw nothing despite the intensive lookover and turned back around, but the instant he did, he felt something grab hold of him and his body became rigid. "What the hell?" Shikamaru stood right where he had been with his hands forming the rat sign and his shadow stretched out unnaturally connecting the two. "Shadow Possession Jutsu, successful link. For now, I control your every move." Zuko's eyes widened. "Damn it. He tricked me so he could buy time to do this one move. I can't believe I fell for that." Shikamaru moved his arms to press his palms together as if praying, and Zuko was forced to mimic this action. The Otonin struggled to break free but couldn't. "You must mimic all my moves, and if I channel chakra through my arms, you will too, and I'm guessing that's not a good idea for you right now." Zuko looked horrified. "No, please don't. You'll destroy my arms beyond repair." The Nara didn't look sympathetic. "Maybe next time you'll think before announcing your secret weapon. You can either withdraw, or lose your precious arms. Your choice, and choose quickly or I will." He added that part to avoid using too much chakra to maintain the shadow link and risk having to end it. That would end any advantage he had here. The Oto Genin didn't need to think about his options long. "All right, I forfeit." Hate raised his hand. "In that case, winner by forfeit, Shikamaru Nara." The pineapple-haired teen released his jutsu and Zuko regained control of his movements. "Oh, I'm going to be hearing about this for a long time," the Oto Genin told him with regret as he went back up to his comrades. "You put up a good fight, man," Naruto told him to boost his spirits. "Until the end," he bitterly commented. Dosu came up to his teammate. "Zuko, I can pretty much guess what's going through your mind right now. So all I'll say is it could have been worse." Zuko showed no signs of relief though. On the other side of the room, Shikamaru was greeted by his proud team. "Good way to defeat your enemy without wasting much energy," Asuma stated. "It's a good thing he was pretty stupid too," Ino added. Shikamaru didn't comment. Instead he sat down against the wall. All right if I get some rest. Asuma nodded. I suppose so, but I'm waking you up when it's Ino's and Chuji's turns. The monitor then declared the next contestants. Haku Momokai vs Sai. I wonder if I can win this one without revealing my bloodline. I know I can't keep it hidden forever, but maybe I can delay the inevitable and not make Konoha more curious about our group. Haku told herself as she went down to the arena. Momokai? Any connection to Zabuza Momokai? Kakashi asked himself. Haku stood ready and waiting. She was currently dressed in a dark blue battle kimono and her hair held up in a bun with two senbon holding it in place. The look made her look slightly androgynous to those unfamiliar to her yet still more on the feminine side. Sai on the other hand wore a black ninja outfit with a grey open jacket on too and a ninjato at his left hip. He smiled at her with his eyes closed, and that bothered her more than anything else. Ready? Begin. Hayate announced. Right away Sai pulled out a scroll and a brush. He opened the scroll, revealing it was blank, and began quickly drawing several animals on it. It was actually somewhat impressive to see him draw such a complex drawing so quickly and accurately, without having to get more ink. Haku suspected there was a trick to it, but had no time to worry about that. Ninja Art Super Beast Imitation. Sai calmly said before the drawings came to life right off the scroll as black and white animals. These particular animals happened to be lions and there were 5 of them. Whoa! Didn't see that one coming. Haku said, somewhat impressed but not intimidated. The lions advanced on her so she made a series of one-handed hand signs. Ice-style 1,000 Needles Jutsu. Countless ice senbon formed and pierced the lions, killing them but making them look like they were being erased. Sai kept smiling at her, but now his eyes were open. Ice techniques eh? That's unusual. Hope you don't accidentally freeze your balls off. That comment made the ice wielder jerk back. Did he really just say that? He thinks I'm a boy. Oh, I've got no problems with my powers so your concern is unneeded. An ice wielder? That's interesting. Sarutobi told himself. This new village is full of surprises. Sai started drawing again. Ninja Art Super Beast Imitation. This time 10 demonic horses sprang to life and ran towards Haku. Ice-style Ice Spike Jutsu. Haku declared after 4 two-handed hand signs. In front of her several spikes as thick as training logs and as long as a full-grown person formed on the floor before her like a barricade. The horses couldn't stop or dodge in time and ran right into the spikes, piercing themselves and disappearing. Ice-style 1,000 Needles Jutsu. Haku added. Sai tried to draw up something more effective, but the ice senbon Haku created aimed right for his scroll and tore the available paper to ribbons. And as a precaution, some of them skewered the rolled-up section of the scroll too to prevent him from simply unrolling an available portion to continue drawing on. Sai lost his smile. Clever. You effectively eliminated one of the requirements of my methods. He tossed the scroll away, but then he reached inside his jacket and pulled out another. But any good shinobi has spare equipment for such an occasion. Well, that just shows you are more competent than some of the shinobi I've seen from this village. Haku commented. But can you draw now? She performed 6 hand signs in quick succession while he tried drawing some more creatures. Ice-style Blizzard Mist Jutsu. From out of her mouth emerged a thick gray stream of mist. It looked exactly like the hidden mist jutsu and quickly covered the whole area. Sai finished his drawing as the mist hit him, instantly chilling him but doing nothing else. Ninja Art Super Beast Imitation. This time he created 2 eagles to fly over the spikes and attack Haku from above. The Oto Kunoichi had hid herself in the fog, but his eagles should have no problem finding her. The eagles circled around the arena, searching for their target. Sai was momentarily bothered that they couldn't find her. Without realizing it, he started to rub his arms in an effort to keep warm. Suddenly one of the eagles swooped down and attacked a spot about 4 feet to his right in front of him. After the eagle hit, he saw Haku rise from the fog, indicating she had been crawling through it in an effort to sneak up on him, and she looked hurt. The second eagle attacked too, but when it hit, Haku burst into shards of ice that cut up the eagles and killed them. A nice clone. Sai asked himself. I didn't even see it in this fog. Where's the real one? He pulled out his sword and looked around for his opponent. It's a good thing birds of prey focus more on moving targets than still ones, Haku told herself, having remained still while her ice clone provided a distraction. Ice-style Thousand Needles Jutsu. More ice senbon formed around Sai and struck him while he attempted to block them with his sword and failed. Many pressure points were struck, making him seize up and collapse, unable to get up. She then rose from the fog. I believe this match is over. Hayate said nothing, waiting for any sign from Sai. The pale nin couldn't stand due to Haku's attack, so the coughing Jounin relented. Winner, Haku Mamakai. Haku dispelled the freezing mist and went back to where she had been before. Sai was taken away on a stretcher, already contemplating how he could assist Danzo in trying to acquire her talents for Root later on. Haku gave the pale artist a brief glance. Should I have corrected him when he called me a boy? After a quick thought, she shook her head. Nah, that would probably just cause more trouble for me later on. Kurane smiled at her student. Good job, Haku. Although from now on you'll have to be on guard for any curious Konoha ninja. They probably won't attack you, but they're bound to love the idea of trying to convince you to join them instead of our village. Haku waved it off. Like I would. Even so, Kurane continued, sounding more serious now. They may not take no for an answer. Haku smiled. Okay sensei, I'll just spend all my time with Naruto-kun like Anko-san ordered Hinata to do. That way I'm covered. She struggled to not laugh at the Genjutsu expert's expression, which was a mixture of, I can't believe you said that, and, keep your panties on. The monitor buzzed and two more names were revealed. Ino Yamanaka vs. Dosuke Inuta. Too bad Forward won't be here to see me wipe the floor with this guy. The platinum blonde from Konoha claimed confidently. You should focus more on doing the job well rather than being praised for it, Ino. Asuma told his Kunoichi student. No worries, Asuma-sensei, it'll be a piece of cake. Ino said before she headed down to the arena. Actually, I'm a bit worried. My skills work best when I'm with my teammates, not solo. I gotta be careful here and not show any nervousness. She got and saw Dosu already waiting for her. Why does he dress so shabbily? Either he's weird or it serves some purpose. To be safe, let's assume the latter. Neither Genin bothered to make any comments beforehand, so Hayate performed his duty. Read cough cough, sorry. Ready? Begin. Dosu was ready to use his main weapon right away, but remembering Zaku's fight moments ago, chose to withhold that for the time being. For now, he reached into one of his supply pouches and tossed out a few dozen caltrops that landed scattered in front of Ino before she could move. Ino briefly looked daunted but just jumped over where the group was the thinnest and threw some shuriken at her foe in the process. Dosu used his gauntlet to block. Fortunately, it was strong enough to withstand the weak attack without damage. When Ino landed, she started up her trademark jutsu. Mind Possession Dash. Melody Gauntlet Heavy Bass Blast. Dosu cut in, and unfortunately for the Konoha Kunoichi, his attack was faster. A shockwave erupted from the contraption Dosu wore on his right arm, slamming into Ino with the force of a normal wind jutsu. She felt herself pushed back a bit but not hard enough to actually fall, impressive since her sense of balance was being thrown into disarray by the impact the sound had on her inner ear. And if that wasn't bad enough, heavy vibrations from the ground went up her legs and then her whole body, making her internal organs feel like they were rattling inside her. The collective effect made her feel disorientated and quite nauseous. Dosu himself felt a bit off too from the backlash of the weapon. Fortunately that mane he wore allowed the excess sound waves generated by the gauntlet to harmlessly bleed out of his own body. Ino wasn't so lucky and finally fell forwards onto her hands and knees, looking like she was about to hurl. There was also a ringing in her ears that was going to drive her crazy in no time. She looked up and was glad to see he hadn't moved towards her to do more. I guess some of these new village shinobi prefer to fight standing in one place with ranged attacks. Ino told herself, remembering the battles involving several of the other Oto genin. Perfect targets for my techniques, if I could strike faster. Melody Gauntlet High-Pitched Screech. Dosu called out, his weapon now generating a siren-like sound. Ino screamed painfully as she covered her ears to block out the noise as best she could. Everyone else in the room had to do the same, particularly those watching from behind Ino. The only reason Dosa wasn't affected was because he moved a few mobile ear flaps to guard himself during the time when Ino was settling herself. To everyone's relief, the attack ended soon and Dosa moved forward to get right in Ino's face. Her head was throbbing and her hands were still tied around her ears, so she didn't even notice his movements. Everyone expected him to hit her, but instead he pushed her back with his left palm, making her fall backwards right onto the caltrops he set in place at the start of the match. Now the platinum blonde yelled for a different reason. "Okay, she's suffered enough," Hate commented. "Winner, Dosa Kinuta." Asuma sighed, his cigarette lowering on his lips. "Sorry Ino. But hopefully this will teach you to value your training more." While medics took Ino away and the main Doto Genin rejoined his comrades, Guy looked at his own fellow comrades. "So what does everyone think of this new village?" "They're full of surprises, that's for sure," Genma stated. "We haven't yet found what we really want to know, but we did discover a few interesting facts," Kakashi pointed out. "Like the Byakugan wielder and a hint to where their village is. Remember Kakashi that we don't want to act rash to someone we know little about and would probably benefit more from allying with than Dash," Guy tried to say, but his friend/rival cut him off with a hateful glare. "Ally with them?" Kakashi spat out like the idea was sin itself. "These guys ruined my eye, stole my sensei's wife from us, crippled my student, and interfered on my team's first real mission. There is no force on heaven or earth to make me ally myself with them." Asuma shook his head. "Guy was talking about the village Kakashi, not just you, and I don't think it's up to you who Konoha joins forces with. And personally I think we should give his idea merit. Maybe they'd fix your eye up if you got on their good side." Kakashi stubbornly looked away. "Oh, real mature Kakashi," Genma sarcastically added. The monitor then declared the next match. Tenten Higurashi vs Gaara Sabaku. Ch54 Conclusion. Gaara and Tenten stood in the arena facing each other without worry. Gaara had faith in his ultimate defense, and Tenten had faith in her superior aim. Of course, neither knew what the other had to offer in this match, but certain they would triumph. Gaara stood with his arms crossed in front of himself and his eyes narrowed. "I wonder how good she is. Judging from what I've seen of Konoha Kunoichi, I shouldn't expect much." The pink-haired one was pathetic and the blonde was too slow. The brunette Naruto faced was marginally better, but lacked the drive and diverse skills required for a proper ninja. This one may be no different. Tenten meanwhile stood confidently with her fists at her sides ready to grab her scrolls and kunous in her weapons pouch. "This guy looks like he knows what he's doing and he's not the least bit afraid of me. I'm guessing that huge gourd on his back must have something to do with his skills, but it's bound to affect his balance and mobility at the same time. If I'm lucky he should be slow enough to be an easy target for me. But that just makes me wonder what skill he excels in then." "Ready? Begin," Hate announced. Tenten moved quickly, hoping to end this quickly, by throwing the kunous she had unsealed and ready at the raccoon-eyed boy. She grabbed two and threw them both at his shoulders, hoping to impair his ability to use his arms comfortably. She was surprised to see that, without him even moving a muscle, the cork on his gourd popped out and a stream of sand emerged to block the throwing knives from impacting him. "What the? How'd he do that? Do any of these Sunanin need hand signs to perform jutsu? I know that puppet user needed his hands to move his puppet, but I saw no hand signs needed to make the chakra threads. And that Suna Kunoichi didn't even need a jutsu against her opponent." Tenten couldn't think much further as Gaara's sand formed a tendril and came at her. She jumped away and threw a shuriken, hoping Gaara was distracted and couldn't block. Even if he had been, his sand wasn't and moved to deflect the throwing star. At the same time the tendril he already had out wrapped around her left ankle in the air and held her upside down in the air. Expecting something bad to happen next, Tenten unfurled one of her scrolls and unsealed a few kunous with paper bombs attached to them, which she threw right at Gaara's sand. They made contact and shortly exploded, sending sand flying and creating huge smoke clouds. The tendril holding her up suddenly dropped her, which she was wisely prepared for, so she turned right side up and landed on her feet. When she landed, she noticed some of the sand was still wrapped around her ankle like a shackle. Gaara looked unharmed and thrust his left arm forward. Sand at his feet mimicked him and shot out from the left side towards his target. It hit her hard and knocked her back but not down. Gaara thrust his right hand forward and more sand rushed at Tenten. Thinking quickly, the bun-haired Kunoichi leaped into the air. I hoped to save this for later, but there may not be a later for me if I don't now, she told herself as she pulled out 2 scrolls and unfurled them both while spinning. The paper formed a sort of helix under her in the process and several visible seals started to glow. Twin rising dragons, she proclaimed while at her highest. Smoke flooded the arena and the sounds of weapons flying could be heard, but little could be seen. Only Guy and Lee knew what was going on. Niji would too had he been there to watch. The sudden release of multiple seals would generate a proportional amount of smoke that would double as a blinder if used to this degree, and the motion Tenten started beforehand would give the released weapons the inertia they needed to be fired without her actually having to throw them herself. Not to mention the spinning would allow her to attack in all directions around and under her while leaving her a safe spot to land. When Tenten did land, she held on to 4 shuriken just in case she still had to attack more, and waited for the smoke to clear or for her opponent to retaliate. While she waited, she felt something move underneath her and crawl up her legs. She looked down and saw more sand, a lot more sand. She jumped backwards but the sand followed her like it was hunting her. It was even reaching up for her as she moved through the air. Come on, I had to do some kind of damage to this guy. Shouldn't his attacks be slowing down? The weapon enthusiast asked herself. The smoke cleared and she saw a wall of sand in front of the Tsunejin hierarchy, with dozens of throwable weapons of various types embedded in it. Gaara came into her view by stepped towards his right around the sand shield, and to her disbelief he didn't have a scratch on him. She missed? Lee asked, astounded by the idea. Tenten-chan never misses. This guy must use sand for offense and defense. Guy theorized quite accurately. My best technique and it did nothing. Tenten told herself. What can I do? There's got to be some way to hurt this guy. But how? Gaara pointed his left arm at her and his fist was open but looked like he was grasping something. Sand coffin. All the sand gatherer around Tenten and tried to engulf her. Oh hell no, she said as she tried to get out of the way. Sadly she couldn't get away fast enough and got covered in sand up to her neck. The sand was holding her tightly, the pressure making it impossible for her to even squirm. I'm going to die, she screamed in her head. Proctor, if you don't desire for her to get crushed, it would be wise to declare the winner. Gaara told Hayate with the smallest glance in his direction and a touch of ki to emphasize his seriousness. Hayate looked the scene over and decided it was better to do as the raccoon-eyed boy said. In that case, the winner here is Gaara Sabaku. Satisfied, Gaara released his hold on the kunoichi and all his sand went back into his gourd. Not bad. Honestly, you strike me as the best kunoichi genin I've seen from your village, he told Tenten. The bun-haired girl dusted herself off. Thanks, I guess. But I'm going to be even better for the next time we cross paths. Gaara smiled. Keep in mind I likely will be too. He said it with no hint of a threat, more like he was trying to encourage her. The two looked at each other daringly, then left to go back to their teammates, neither injured enough for the infirmary. Tenten of course had to stop to recollect her used weapons. The monitor buzzed and 2 more names were announced. Chuji Akimichi vs Futakano. The green-haired Jinhiraki smiled. Finally, my turn. Kurane arched an eyebrow. Fu against an Akimichi? This is going to be an interesting match. Fu jumped off the balcony and landed safely in the arena while Anko came up to Kurane. You think she'll be able to handle this one? Kurane's body language gave no answer. I'm not sure. Her Kekkei Genkai will give her the element of surprise, but against an Akimichi it may not be enough. Asuma was giving his student a brief pep talk before he went down to participate. Try your best, Chuji, I know you can do it. Fight like one of your friends depends on it. And before you ask, no, I'm not going to buy you a meal if you win. You need to learn to win for more reasons than your next meal. Chuji nodded and went down to face his foe. She looked a lot more confident than he did, but he felt he had a good chance of winning here. Aside from her confidence, he couldn't see any sign that told him what to expect of her. Although he was certain that red pack of hers served a purpose. Ready? Begin. Hayate proclaimed. Fu did nothing, as if waiting for the chubby boy to go first. Chuji was eager to end this quickly, so he used his best technique. Expansion Jutsu Human Boulder. Chuji's torso swelled up, making him look like a gigantic meatball with a shirt on it. His arms, legs, and head were tucked inside his body, and he started rolling towards the Jinhiriki. Chuji collided with the wall, and it appeared that he crushed his target. Did he do it? That was quick. Shikamaru mused. Chuji stopped spinning and reduced his size to normal to see what he had done. He was surprised to see no trace of Fu at all, not even a scrap of clothes left behind. Where'd she go? Right here. She answered playfully as she instantly became noticeable. It was like she popped out of thin air, with no trace of even a shushin being used. And not only that, there was no sign that she had been affected by Chuji's assault. How did you do that? Chuji asked. Not telling. That's my little secret. She then chuckled like she had made a small joke. The truth was in a way she did. Fu, being the Jinhiriki of the Shishibai, was supposed to gain 7 Kekkei Genkai on her 7th birthday. Sadly though, she didn't get to contact the beetle in time for the full deal to take effect. Normally, if the deal couldn't be arranged, the Baijuya would force 1 Kekkei Genkai onto its host of its own choice for the chance to escape later on. Fu may not have made contact with her inner demon quick enough to gain all 7, but she did have the chance to choose the one she would acquire, and that was good enough for the Shishibai, who recommended the one she did acquire. Fu's Kekkei Genkai was known as Body Contraction, possibly not the most fitting name but appropriate because of its similarities to the Akimika's body expansion techniques. The Akimikas had the ability to use their chakra to make all or part of their body bigger and heavier, and the bigger and heavier they already were, the less chakra they needed to do so. Fu, on the other hand, had her skills go in the opposite direction. She used her chakra to become smaller and lighter. She could become any size but was unable to only apply this to a segment of her body, it was the whole body or nothing. This may not sound too impressive at first, but it did have its uses. When she was smaller, she could sneak around better and get through small spaces and gaps in defenses, not to mention that she became a harder target to hit. Fortunately, her clothes and equipment shrank with her. One of the best features of this ability was the increase in speed that came with it. Normally, being smaller meant that she couldn't cover as much ground while running as she could when she was her normal size, even if she wasn't moving any slower. It was like even if a racehorse and a dog were running at an equal speed, the horse would be in front because it could take bigger steps. Fu's Kekkei Genkai actually countered this by increasing her speed when she got smaller, so she could cover just as much ground as she could in her normal size. And this speed increase didn't apply to just her legs, her whole body and nervous system got a speed increase. This was how she dodged Chuji. She got small enough to fit in the cracks between the tiles and ran through them to get away before Chuji's weight could do too much damage above her. When the danger passed, she returned to normal size so quickly it looked like she appeared out of nowhere. She did something similar when faced with the Aimnin in the Forest of Death and Sakura in Wave. The ability to get bigger versus the ability to get smaller. Who will win? Anko asked herself while watching. Expansion Jutsu Human Boulder. Chuji said, repeating his attack again. He charged right at the girl, who disappeared from sight before he could hit her. He hit the wall again, but rather than stop and check around again, he spun in a new direction and charged again when he got away from the wall. Is he trying to bulldoze her? Naruto asked. It looks like it. Hinata replied. Chuji continued this for a while, but Fu could not be seen. Hayate looked around. If she left the arena she forfeits, but we have chakra sensing seals for that and none have gone off. So she must still be within the required area, but too well hidden to detect. Is she like that orange-haired girl who hid underground? One of the guarding Jounin double-checked the seals Hayate was just thinking about. It's in perfect working order. So she is still in the arena somewhere. But where? Chuji finally stopped and returned to normal size. When he did, Fu appeared standing on his right arm using chakra to stay attached, herself the size of a chihuahua. She giggled and he tried to punch her off. She jumped and returned to normal size in midair, doing a flip in the process. When she landed, she had her hand in the tiger sign. Bang! She said. Chuji felt something burning, and looked to see two paper bombs attached to the left and right of his midsection. Before he could react, they exploded. They weren't dangerous, more for show than lethality, but they did hurt. It was like having a few firecrackers strapped underneath his armpits. Had Fu be serious here, this tactic would have killed him. How did she do that? Asuma asked, seeing his student go up in smoke. Kurane smiled, knowing exactly how her student did such a thing. Glad you used my idea, Fu. You got small enough that you could cling to the guy's clothes and moved to a safe spot while he moved. Not an easy feat for someone like him, I might add. You then placed the tags on the body parts you could reach while he spun without getting yourself crushed, and though they were microscopic when you put them there, they became normal size when you did too. The smoke around Chuji cleared, and the chubby boy was seen lying on the floor twitching in agony, his shirt torn to shreds. Had he not been wearing a mesh shirt underneath to reduce friction burn while rolling, he would probably be missing some skin too. As it was, his skin was just raw and red. Hate thought it might be better to end this match now. Winner here is Dash. Wait. Chuji yelled out, slowly getting back on his feet. I can still go on. You sure? Hate asked and Chuji nodded. Very well, you may continue. Nice try, pal, but there's no way I'm going to be the only Jinhuriki who can't go to the finals here. Fu told herself. She then prepared 3 hand signs. Wind style, tornado prison jutsu. A cyclone of wind formed around Chuji, moving fast enough that he had a hard time seeing anything on the other side. Fu then threw out a large amount of kunaus and shurikens, which got swept up into the cyclone. If Chuji tried to get out or get bigger, he'd get cut up. Unfortunately, there was one detail Fu didn't know about. Much just how her body contraction gave her extra speed to counter the weakness being smaller would cause, the body expansion gave Chuji a defensive boost to counter the fact that bigger meant he was an easier target to hit. She may have been harder to hit, but he was harder to hurt. Chuji could see the tips of the weapons now included in the whirlwind and decided to risk it. Expansion Jutsu Human Boulder. He became a meatball tank again, and the increase in his girth disrupted the cyclone and deflected the small weapons. Fu looked caught off guard. Oh crap. But I'm not letting you squash me. She prepared 4 hand signs fast. Wind style, grinding wind cycle jutsu. To her left a large flat whirlwind formed and spun counterclockwise. To her right another whirlwind formed and spun clockwise. The two joined right between Fu and Chuji, and the winds generated by both combined to create a pressurized wind cannon that Chuji happened to be caught in the middle of. He spun as fast as he could to charge at her, but the wind kept pushing him back and slowly it was starting to win. Fu's position allowed her to escape getting caught between the whirlwinds. Chuji could not continue this much longer. He had enough chakra and stamina to, but Fu's jutsu wasn't called grinding for nothing. The air currents were applying lots of pressure on his body, and while his enlarged body could handle more pressure than a normal human body could, the motion of the wind combined with the pressure made it feel worse. It felt like she was trying to erode this boulder. And if this kept up, she would. I can't keep doing this. I gotta get out of this one and try again. Chuji told himself. He then stopped spinning and returned to normal, allowing the wind to shot him towards the wall behind him. He had been prepared for that, but he underestimated the force of the wind and hit the wall harder than he anticipated. Rather than see if he could continue, Fu ended her current jutsu and threw a few kunao with weak paper bombs attached to them. They embedded themselves in the wall around Chuji and went off, hurting him a little more. After the attack, Chuji was down on his knees and breathing hard, but his expression showed he wasn't going to call it quits just yet. How can I be good enough to protect my friends, when I can't even fight on my own? I can't give up here. He then struggled to get to his feet, but Fu came in and hit him with a good punch, knocking him over. He struggled to get back up and she kicked him. Hate saw where this was going and felt enough was enough. Okay, Chuji Akimi kick off. Akimichi is unable to continue. The winner is Fu Takano. And with that, The preliminary comes to a close. Fio leaned down. You did good, man. No hard feelings and nothing personal, it's just part of the test. He nodded but said nothing. Medics came and placed him on a stretcher. Before he was taken away he gave her a grin. Someday we're going to have a rematch. And I'll do better. There was no vengeance in his claim, only good sportsmanship. The green-haired Jinhiriki smirked. Looking forward to it. Would everyone who won their matches please come down here? Hayate asked. Soon Fu, Naruto, Hinata, Isaribi, Haku, Dosa, Kiba, Shino, Shikamaru, Lee, Temari, and Gaara stood before the coughing Jounin and the Hokage joined him too. He saw surprised to see that all 12 made it through rather than there being at least one double knockout. This situation wasn't preferred but it would be manageable. Sarutobi addressed them all. To all of you that have earned the right to compete in the third round of the exam, congratulations. Now, I'd like to explain the third round. He paused to adjust his hat. As we explained earlier, the third round is the main event and will be watched by many people. Each of you will have to fight at full strength to make your countries proud. You cannot afford to have any reservations here, for you have more to worry about than just a promotion. You've got that right. The Oto and Suna all thought. This is why the third round will be held 1 month from now. Sarutobi added. We're not going to do it now. Kiba asked. This month will be so you all can make preparations. The old Hokage replied. Meaning? Isaribi asked. We need some time to allow the foreign dignitaries to arrive and get the main event set up. But also, this is for you all to rest and retrain yourselves. Retrain? Kankuro asked. Can't he just give a straight answer just once? You all fought here like it was a serious fight, some a little more than others I'm presuming. But you all had to fight an unknown opponent, uncertain of their skills. Now that uncertainty is gone, and you all to a point know what the others are capable of. If the opposition knows your capabilities and limitations, you have little chance of winning compared to having the element of surprise. This month is to give you all an opportunity to gain new skills and improve the ones you already have. But also rest too, so that you'll be at your best when it's your turn in the third round. I can't afford to rest. I'm going to be on guard all month for sure. Hinata thought. Before I dismiss you, we're going to decide now what the arrangement will be for the next round. Sarutobi added. Hayate stood before them holding a box. Reach each one at a time and pull out one piece of paper. Each did. Okay, now from left to right, tell us your number. 10 Dosa said. 1 Naruto said. 9 Hinata said. 5 Temari said. 12 Gaara said. 3 Fu said. 7 Isaribi said. 6 Haku said. 2 Kiba said. 11 Lee said. 4 Shikamaru said. 8 Shino said. Hayate wrote this all down. Alright, this is how the first round of the third test will be set. He showed them the chart. Naruto Urashi vs Kiba Inyazuka. Fu Takano vs Shikamaru Nara. Temari Sabuka vs Haku Mamakai. Isaribi Mikai vs Shino Abarame. Hinata Hibiki vs Dosa Kinyuta. Rock Lee vs Gaara Sabaku. I'm against the guy who beat up Sasami-chan. I'll win this one for her and show everyone no one messes with my girls when I'm around. Naruto thought confidently. All I know about my opponent is he's immune to genjutsu. But I'm sure he's not immune to taijutsu. Kiba told himself. The shadow wielder? If he catches me my size won't matter. Fu thought warily. A girl? So troublesome. I don't want to fight a girl. Shikamaru groaned. So it's just like a tournament. Temari asked herself. This is going to be fun. Desert girl versus snow girl. Haku mused. The bug user eh? I'll just drown them. Isaribi told herself. Shino had nothing to say. I'm against someone from Oto? At least I know what I'm getting into here. Hinata thought. Oh man, Naruto will never forgive me if I hurt his girlfriend. Dosa warned himself. I have a month to prepare for my fight against the one who beat Tenten. I will win, and if I don't. He went on like that in his standard manner. Soon, the real fun will begin. Gaara told himself. You all have a month to strategize and train or rest up. You must all remain in Konoha and show up on time or you will be disqualified. You may practice against anyone who's willing, but you are forbidden from eliminating the competition before the match. Now, are there any questions? Shikamaru raised his hand. I got one. Since this is arranged like a tournament, I'm assuming that means those that win their match get to pair up and fight other winners, until only remains undefeated. Does that mean that only one person actually gets to become Chiryunin? That sounds like such a waste compared to how many people actually take this test. Haku thought. No, that's not it. Sarutobi told the Nara. There will be judges there to evaluate you. If we were going by the process you just described, judges would be unnecessary. These judges will watch your fights and evaluate your skills, seeing who among you has the skills needed to become Chiryunin. Winning your match only means you have more than one opportunity to display your talents. Even those that lose their matches are not automatically disqualified from promotion, they just won't get another chance to prove themselves strong enough. So you're saying that there's a chance that all of us here could become Chiryunin? Temari asked. The Hokage nodded. Yes, and there's a chance that none of you will become Chiryunin too. Surviving all the way until the end holds no promise for promotion. Any other questions? Naruto raised his hand. When the exact date and location for this? I wanna make sure they don't tell us from Oto the wrong info so they can disqualify us for not being there. And they can't do that if everyone else here hears the answer too. The date is exactly 30 days from now and the location is the Konoha Arena just outside the city. Anything else? No one spoke up. Very well then. You are all dismissed for the next month. Use it wisely. He then looked at the Oto Genin and their Jounin behind them. Oh, if I may have dash. Before he could finish his request to have a word with them all Otonin disappeared in a shushin. Ch 55 warnings. The Otonins appeared right outside the borders of the Forest of Death. All except Kabuto, Kin, and Sasami who were still in the infirmary. Anko and Kurane looked over their gathered protege. Okay guys, we're going to have to be on high alert from this point on. What about Kabuto-sensei and Kin? Zaku asked. I already sent them a snake letting them know we'd leave first chance we got and he should do the same. As soon as he can bring the others with him, he'll join up with us. Anko told him. That will make us look even more suspicious, like we've definitely got something to hide. Haku commented. Kurane nodded. All ninja have something to hide. We do have secrets Konoha wants to know and they know we're not going to just give them the information they want. They'll try either bribery, intimidation, or force to get it, and I'm guessing the old man intended to do one of the first two options. He wouldn't risk force this early, not with Suna on our side. He couldn't explain to another village why he did such a thing to an ally's ally. But they will try force with me, won't they? Hinata asked. Anko nodded. Someone will. The Hyuga are likely to claim this is a matter just for them and no one, not even us, are allowed to get involved. The Hokage is likely to agree as long as any actions taken can't be linked to him. So what do we do if we can't leave this village for a month? Isaribi asked. We've got it covered. While you kids were taking the test, we Jounin were scoping out the village to see just what we could use and where we can go. Subsonic helped us out a bit there too. Kurane answered. My team and I saw Subsonic in the forest a few days ago. Naruto spoke up. They gave us a small warning, and after experiencing the preliminaries, I'm positive they were right. What did they say? Anko asked. Subsonic warned us that this entire exam was rigged to favor Konoha. Naruto answered, making his same-age comrades gasp in shock. The village that appears the strongest gets the most business and the most money, right? So to look the strongest, Konoha wants most of the ones who succeed in this test to come from Konoha. So we don't have a chance? Zaku asked angrily. Oh, we have a chance. Subsonic says that only Otokage-sama can decide for us. If the Hokage had say over all of us from all the villages, what's to stop him from promoting only the Konoha applicants and denying us all so all the power is in his favor? Anko nodded sagely. Exactly. If the local cage had all the power to decide rank, it would inevitably create just such a scenario, with each village one at a time promoting only their own ranks just to stay in balance with each other. Even if the ninja didn't truly deserve such a rank. I think there's more to this though. Naruto added. Remember before the prelims? How out of 24 passing genin, 12 were from Konoha? Exactly half? How likely is that? And each one of them, and us too, was taking this test for the first time. What about the other teams that surely had done this before and knew what to expect? It's like someone was in the forest trying to eliminate the competition. Everyone was silent for a moment. That does make sense. Few said. But then, why did we get through? Dosu asked. Because if only Konoha teams passed the second test, all the other cages would declare it unfit in a clear attempt to keep all the power to the hosting village. Which would risk retaliation, maybe even more, from another vengeful village. They have to let some of the visiting teams to get to the third round to avoid such a scandal. Kurane claimed. Anyway, I'm not finished just yet. Naruto continued. Did anybody else notice something odd about how the matches were set up? Weren't they just random? Isaribi asked. If they were indeed random, why did nobody have to fight someone from their own village? Naruto asked. 12 were from Konoha, and 12 weren't. Each person from Konoha ended up fighting someone from somewhere else. If the selection was honestly random, wouldn't at least one matchup be Konoha vs Konoha or Oto vs Oto? Or even Oto vs Suna? The two Jounin's eyes widened, and Anko spoke up. Otauto, you think that maybe those fights were set up? I'm willing to admit there's a chance I'm wrong, but if I am, then why is it almost every one of us from Oto had to fight someone from Konoha who happened to have a Kekkei Genkai or clan specialty? Everyone thought it over, and now it was glaringly obvious. They had fought against an Uchiha, an Aburame, an Akimichi, a Nara, a Yamanaka, a Hyuga, an Inyazuka, and a Kurama. All of which had specialized fighting methods. Haku was the only one among them that had to fight a clanless ninja, but he still had a unique skill. The three clanless Konoha ninja with skills anyone could have, Sakura, Tenten, and Lee, all had Suna opponents. Naruto is exactly right. Kurane told the genin. There is no way that could have been coincidence. Konoha was definitely rigging the random generator. And there's only one reason why they'd rig it to get those type of fights. Anko added. Naruto wanted. They hoped to see one of us use the unbloodline so they'd know who weakened their precious Uchiha. And protect themselves from other ninja of theirs from falling victim to. Hinata added. Few arched an eyebrow. By possibly sacrificing another genin's potential? Would they really ruin someone's future career just to find one Kekkei Genkai user? Anko clapped her hands once. Okay, this changes things. From now on, no one goes anywhere alone. We won't assign buddies or anything, but no one is to be alone at any time anymore. Don't get into any fights with any Konoha ninja if you can avoid it, and alert us if someone claiming to be an authority figure tells you to go somewhere with them. International Chunin exam laws state that genin cannot speak with the village's authority without their Jounin sensei present, so they can't demand you go without us. And when we do have to have a meeting with them, it's inevitable but we can delay it for a bit, but when it happens, let us do the talking. Back at the infirmary, Kabuto was looking over Kin and Sasami, who were both awake now. How are you two feeling? I'm tired, and a little itchy, but I'm okay sensei. Kin answered. I'm a little sore and stiff but I'm good. Sasami told the Jounin. Can either of you stand on your own? Kabuto asked. Kin struggled to remain balanced but could stand on her own power. Sasami however needed to lean onto the brunette for support. Kiba had dealt more damage than Shino had. Good. I can treat you further, but we should go rejoin the others now. Excuse me. A feminine voice called out from behind the three Otonin. Kabuto turned to see Yojeo. Hokage-sama would like to have an audience with you all right away. Now is not a good time. Kabuto politely replied. Even so, I'm afraid this is not a request. He wants to see everyone from your village in front of the Hokage Tower right now. In that case, may I at least tell the others myself? Kabuto asked. I suppose it would make it easier for us. Okay, but you must be there in no less than 5 minutes. Yojao said before leaving. What do you think they want? Sasami asked. Nothing good, that's for sure. Kin commented. Within 5 minutes, all 3 teams from Oto stood before the Hokage Tower. None liked it, but when Kabuto came to them they knew they couldn't refuse without endangering themselves and the Genin's chances at promotion. A few Umbu stood nearby, keeping their eyes on the visitors. The door opened and Hiruzen Sarutobi was seen still in his robes and hat. Behind him were 2 masked guards, and to his right was an unmarked Hyuga man who looked rather curious. Ah, glad you could make it. Come, let's go talk in my office. The Hokage greeted. A moment later, they were in his office along with the 2 Umbu guards who stood to the Hokage's sides while he sat. Anko, Kurane, and Kabuto stood in front of the Hokage's desk while their genin stood behind them. To what do we owe this honor, Hokage-sama? Anko said, having to force the honorable phrasing out, but unfortunately years of experience meant this wasn't the first time she had to say something she'd rather not. Can't a Hokage have a polite chat with those visiting his village? Sarutobi gently asked back. Somehow I have a hard time imagining you do this for everyone who comes to these exams. Kurane commented. You're right, I couldn't possibly do that. At least in the beginning of it. That's too many visitors at once for me. The Hokage replied with a grandfatherly smile that his audience didn't buy. I save it for after the 3rd round battles have been arranged. I bet you don't usually get this many to congratulate in the past. Kabuto said. Sarutobi nodded. Indeed, and I don't usually do ask the entire team to come too unless all the genin earned the right to advance. Nevertheless, I'm willing to make an exception here, as it's quite an honor to have attendees from a completely new village here. And we're grateful you were willing to let us attend. Kurane told him. You should also thank the Kazekage, as it was his recommendation that you attend. He stated. The Otonin tried to feign silent ignorance at hearing this, and the Hokage continued. Speaking of which, I'm a bit curious on your village's connection to Suna. I'm afraid we can't discuss our village's connections to another village as that could be considered treason on our part. Anko calmly stated matter-of-factly. It was worth a shot. Sarutobi thought. Very well. But I'm sure reasonable people such as yourselves could understand my curiosity. Any cage hosting the village would be curious about a brand new village coming. And displaying such strong genin at the same time. I'm impressed that so many of the contenders in the finals come from your village. He's trying to flatter us to hide his jealousy and discontempt on that. The 3 Oto Jounin thought together without looking at each other. I understand that by law you cannot reveal certain details about your own village. And by international Chiyunin exam law I myself am forbidden from demanding such information, unless you've committed a capital offense in my village. Sarutobi went on, but paused to narrow his eyes. However, there are 3 particular matters of which I am privileged to demand answers regarding. His tone of voice showed he would not let them leave this room unless they cooperated. The Oto shinobi were unintimidated by the senior citizen. Even so, Hinata made sure to grab Naruto's hand. At this point, she didn't care if people knew they were together. The first thing I wish to discuss is the report I received that one of my ninja, who has been declared Kia for over a decade, was seen in the company of some of your shinobi. Care to clarify? Sarutobi asked, deciding to start on this one first since this was the matter he was least likely to get immediate results on and wanted to get it out of the way before the bigger issue. He must mean Kushina-san. Anko and Kurane thought. Perhaps records of their death were greatly exaggerated. Kurane offered. I doubt that. Sarutobi coldly responded. Tell me the real reason why one of my shinobi is now allied with you or I'll accuse your village of theft. Theft? Kabuto asked with an arched eyebrow. Don't you mean kidnapping or abduction? You're talking about a person here. Since this person was declared dead, then I can only charge you with theft of a body until I see proof she's alive. The Hokage clarified. So tell me, did your village somehow resuscitate her or did she turn traitor and leave? With all due respect Hokage-sama, you're assuming we were personally involved and that we know this woman personally, despite the fact that all you've confirmed is that the person in question is a woman. Anko clarified. Damn, I was hoping they'd slip up on that and tell me something I could use to trap them with. The old man told himself bitterly. For security purposes I cannot tell you her name. For all I know she could in fact be dead and one of my ninja was just tricked. He doubted it, but without proof he couldn't risk giving other villages the idea that Kushina was indeed alive and claimable. Who knows what they'd find if they went looking for her. Then for security purposes we can't tell you anything either. Kurane replied. Sarutobi inhaled on his pipe for a moment, pausing to buy himself enough time to think about how to get more out of them regarding Kushina. He ended up with nothing at the moment, so he decided to move on to the next issue after exhaling. Very well then. In that case, I'll move to the second issue. Can you explain to me why a genin from your village happens to know the Shadow Clone Jutsu, a kinjutsu known only to this village? Let alone is able to use it. Oh, that's simple. Kabuto politely said. The Shadow Clone Jutsu was a difficult jutsu to create. After all other clone jutsus use an element as the basis, whereas the Shadow Clone doesn't. According to our records, 2 people worked on it before the villages were created. I think one of them was a Senju and the other was a clanless shinobi who befriended him. They worked hard together and collaborated their efforts and findings until they found the successful means of performing the jutsu. The Senju brought the jutsu to your village, whereas the other shinobi brought it to ours. Sarutobi tilted his head slightly to his right. If these 2 were such good friends, why didn't they both join Konoha? Why did they part ways? Kabuto shrugged. Don't know. Maybe they had a falling out. Maybe the clanless shinobi had family that moved to our home. There's a difference between a clan and a family after all. I'm just telling you what our historical records tell us. Sarutobi closed his eyes in thought. Their explanation does not sound impossible. I'm going to have to double-check the records we have on jutsu creation to be certain. As for how a genin would know how to perform it, Anko added. He's just got a talent for it. Simple as that. I don't know how to make it clearer than that. Sarutobi looked them over suspiciously. But he didn't do it for long. Now, the final thing I wish to discuss is the fact that your group happens to possess something that's the property of Konoha. All of the Otonin frowned. So now you are accusing us of thievery? Kabuto asked. The Hyuga frowned back and folded his arms across his chest. Care to explain an alternative means of you having a Byakugan wielder in your midst? Anko stepped forward. If I may, I have an intriguing tale for you Hokage-sama and Hyuga-san. She paused to see if she had their full attention. A few generations ago, there was a Hyuga born without the Byakugan or any ability to use the Juken. The Hyuga, being rather stubborn when it came to their clan's reputation, ousted this member as, in their opinion, a waste of flesh. This person, having no ninja training or pride, became unable to take the ridicule and seeked sanctuary. Your Nidaime Hokage granted them this and allowed them to leave Konoha. The Hyuga never thought anything of it, outside of being grateful they could pretend such a person didn't exist. Anko then stepped back and turned towards Hinata for a moment. This girl is that unwanted Hyuga's descendant. Apparently the clan never considered the possibility that maybe their so-called blemish would be able to have kids with working eyes. That Hyuga and their descendants became valued members of our country then hidden village, and thus we own our own Byakugan fair and square. This was of course a lie, but Hitomi did tell them that there had been such a Hyuga during the Nidaime's time that did leave Konoha. There was a good chance that there were in fact free Byakugan users out there like Anko described, but Hinata didn't originate from them. But they needed Sarutobi to believe that she was. The old man had his pipe in his mouth but wasn't inhaling anything. He just looked at the Otonin for any telltale signs that this story was false. The Umbu with him shared a look as if to ask each other if this explanation was at all possible. After a while, Sarutobi scratched a small itch on the right side of his chin. If this is true, then perhaps you can tell me the name of this rogue Hyuga that came to your country. Her name was originally Mikamai Hyuga, but when she married it became Hibiki. Hinata answered without hesitation, knowing he was trying to find a hole in their cover. The Hyuga attendee pulled a folder out of his white haori and opened it. I have here a list of every Hyuga that's ever been unaccounted for any reason. Even if such a woman did exist, we'd have some record of her. For no other reason than to see if there's a chance such a birth defect could repeat itself by knowing the blood connection. Anko waved this proclamation off. By all means go ahead and look. You can't prove this woman never had children if you made an effort to ignore her as she left. The Hyuga looked through the folder's files. Did you find anything, Hisashi-san? Sarutobi asked when he stopped on one page longer than he had on the others. The now named Hisashi cleared his throat. According to this, there was indeed a Mikamai Hyuga born during the Nidame's time who had normal eyes. She's listed as having no siblings and one non-Hyuga parent, the mother, and exiled from the clan at the age of 16. The record claims she wasn't exiled sooner because of her father's influence within the clan. But when he died, the whole clan gave her an ultimatum, leave or die dishonorably. She left the village and after that nothing's recorded. Sarutobi looked right at Hinata. So how do you know how to fight like a Hyuga then if your ancestor was denied training? Hinata looked at Anko for a second, who nodded at her student. Hinata then looked back at the Hokage. Mikamai Hibiki, my grandmother, may not have been allowed to be trained as a Hyuga due to her handicap, but she was raised around them for the better part of 2 decades. Do you really believe she wouldn't at least understand the general principle behind their fighting style even if she couldn't perform it? Hisashi allowed himself to express a look of understanding. That does make sense. Hinata continued. My grandmother had no interest or need to know how to fight, but when it became apparent that her children had a working Byakugan, she knew we'd need to know how to defend ourselves from people wanting to claim it as their own. But since we had no way to actually use the authentic Jukin, we improvised and created our own, which we call the Suradoken. I see. Care to give us a demonstration of this Suradoken? Hisashi asked. No, I do not. Hinata plainly answered in a no-nonsense manner. But I'm sure the Hyuga clan would like to see how wrong they were to misjudge your grandmother. Sarutobi offered. Hinata suppressed a scoffing laugh, but a cough did escape her throat. When she fully suppressed her urge, she just looked at the old man with an amused grin. Yeah, right. The only thing they'd want to do is enslave me like they do their own relatives so they can keep my power for themselves and ensure no one like me is outside their control. So my answer is no. Hisashi didn't know if he should be appalled or offended by her reply. Nevertheless, the Byakugan is the property of the Hyuga clan and Konoha so dash. My eyes are my property, old man, no one else's. Hinata all but shouted, her fists clenched tightly at her side. Konoha gave up the rights to have my allegiance when they decided my family wasn't worth the air we breathed. And now that you see value in us, you think we're worth the effort to control. Fuck the Hyugas for all I care. I am a Hibiki and proud of it. And I'm very close to our village's leader, so targeting me is a huge political blunder. After she was done, Hinata took a deep breath and relaxed herself. Oh, it felt so good to finally get all that off my chest. Foolish little girl. We didn't work to avoid a war with Kumo just to let some other village have this kind of power. Sarutobi told himself. You're courageous to speak to us like that, I'll give you that much. Makes me wonder how you speak to your actual leader. However, his gaze moved to the 3 Jounin. I'm going to insist you hand her over to the Hyuga clan without any fuss. Refusal to do so will result in every qualifying genin here being disqualified from participating in the 3rd round. Each of the Otonin gave off a wave of ki that collectively surpassed any the Hokage himself could. You would dare deny deserving genin of a chance they earned simply to satisfy some sick desire to have control over one of them? Kurane asked venomously. How would you explain this to the Kazekage? Kabuto asked, just as angrily. I'd love to know how you'd gloss over your attempt to steal one genin from another village and enslave her for your own in your explanation to your ally about how you treat his other allies. I'm positive that's a violation of the International Chunin exam laws. There's nothing illegal about protecting my village's Kekkei Genkai. The Hokage replied calmly. Anko smiled, but it was not by any means a kind one. Then we have permission to protect her, as her eyes are our village's Kekkei Genkai. Your village considered my grandmother trash. Hinata commented. It's not stealing to take and claim what someone else throws away. I'm going to give you one last chance, girl. Come peacefully or risk hindering your friends and even a war with your village to ensure your eyes aren't used against us. Sarutobi directly told the young girl. Anko looked at all Oto shinobi. Everyone, on the count of 3. 1, 2. Fuck no. Each and every one of them shouted at the Hokage and company, then vanished in a shushin. Check the description for the links to the author.